everyone, and welcome to the CATE Funding and Finance webinar overview. The purpose of this webinar is just to review some basic nitty-gritty of how CATE is funded. How do I request funds? What are the requirements for funding? How do I get reimbursed? And when can I code students as vocational and power school? So let's talk a little bit first about how CATE is funded. So there are two types of CATE funds. One is the Federal Perkins Fund or the EIA state funds. Each year, we're given an allocation by the SDE for Federal Perkins funds and state funds. The amount is never the same each year. We're usually told around May or June what that allocation for the next school year will be. Each grant has different funding guidelines, which can be found on the South Carolina Public Charter School District Google site, and there's a link to that Google site as well, in which you can find those expenditure guidelines for each of those funds. So how you request funds is that schools that would like to request funds through CATE must complete a wish list of items they would like to purchase specifically for CATE programs. Anything bought with CATE funds must be within the guidelines of the grant. Once we receive the wish list, schools will be notified of what has been approved, how much, and through either federal or state funds. That will be done via email, and the submission for the wish list is in Epicenter. So what do I do? So decisions of funding are made by the following criteria. So we look at which schools are growing, initiating, and creating CATE programs within the school, which schools got funding last year and how much did the school receive, and which schools are offering full programs as opposed to just single standalone classes. So there is priority given to schools who are offering full CATE programs as opposed to just various classes. That doesn't mean that if you're offering various classes, you won't receive any funds. It just means we have to prioritize where the money goes. It also should be noted that Perkins was reauthorized, and beginning in the school year 2021, any funding request will need to be directly related to a school's needs assessment that's going to be required to be completed by each school requesting those funds. So those funds and that equipment or whatever you're purchasing must be based on and relate directly to your needs assessment that you'll complete. That won't be for the 1920 school year, but it will be beginning the 2021 school year. And that assessment is being developed by the SDE right now and will be sent out to schools once we receive it. So the wish list. So first of all, the wish list must be filled out completely. It's an Excel document. It is attached in Epicenter for submission, and you have to answer the following areas. So you indicate the subprogram name, the function name, the object name, the amount of the funds that you're requesting, your school name, the course code and name of the course. And then you have to describe the activity for which the funds will be targeted. And then the last piece is describe how the activity listed will improve performance on the Perkins indicators. And please be sure to include the Perkins indicator number that those funds and that material or equipment is going to directly impact. This form must be completed out fully in order to be considered for those funds. So any items purchased with CATE funds, either federal or state, will require corresponding documentation for the school to be reimbursed. You must purchase first, and then as we do with all our grants, we will reimburse when we receive all the required information. So here's what needs to be included. The transaction details must be entered into Smart Fusion, and this will enable the district to easily track the documentation. If you're requesting funds to be utilized for salaries and benefits, that is allowable under CATE, so please review those expenditure guidelines for both of those funds to see when it is allowable and for what purpose. But you must also submit time and effort or PAR as well as payroll registers. If you're utilizing the funds for travel to a conference, you must include your purchase order, invoice, and proof of payment. And beginning this year, you also must include agendas from those conferences. If you're requesting supplies and materials, Please be sure to include those purchase orders, invoices, and then again, that proof of payment. So please note that if you do receive state EIA CATE funds, that money will appear monthly in your school's funds, but you still must provide the documentation of the purchases. So we do track the spending of our federal and our state funds. So the last section is about PowerSchool and EFA funding. There have been a lot of questions about when we can code students as vocational for EFA funding purposes and when we can't. So just to note that students in grades 9 through 12 may be coded as vocational for EFA funding purposes, and only in those specific grades. The students must be receiving the following to be coded as vocational. So you have to have a minimum of 200 minutes per week of total instruction, and then a minimum of 250 minutes per week of a CATE course. If your courses are 50 minutes, this would mean that the students would participate in a CATE course daily. Please note also that schools will be required to submit a PowerSchool report of students who are coded as vocational, just so we as a district can make sure that we're coding students correctly and properly in order to receive the funding. Overall, that is the quick nitty-gritty, down and dirty, if you will, of the funding, how we get it, when we get it, what you need to submit. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. There's my number and my email, and I'm happy to help. Please remember, this is for any school receiving either federal or state CATE funds, as well as any requirements, other requirements that are needed for the program itself. All of that information, of course, can be found on our South Carolina Public Charter School CATE website, which that link has been sent out in operator's notes and to schools. Please review that Google site. Please look at the documentation. There is a lot involved with offering CATE programs, and the compliance piece that will begin to be closer monitored beginning the 2019-20 school year. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I hope you have a great day.